Second time's the charm. I'm going to first off say that I probably will talk about some things that are a little graphic tonight, so consider this somewhere between PG-13 and R for parents that may or may have, whatever. It's our reality, so. First off, in case you didn't know, my name is Avi David. I was born and raised here in Rockaway. Thank you, my parents. And really everybody else here, because it really does take a village. So I went to school here. Always knew that I was going to go to the Army, and that was in 2015. I actually drafted. Did 3.5 years. I originally started off in Rimon, which was a special forces unit for Givati. For technical reasons, outside of this discussion, they ended up closing down the unit after about almost 3 years into my service, so I ended up finishing Maglan. That led me to Miluim, reserve duty, where I was doing it in 55th Brigade with a bunch of guys that get out from Tzanchanim. Specifically my job as, when I was in Sadir, when I was in my mandatory service, was a combat medic. And the place that I went to was called Petan. Petan stands for Pinoi Tispuk and Nevut, which means that every time that you have a larger brigade moving in, we come behind, and if you need logistics of food or water, we're there bringing it in for you every day, because water doesn't run in a combat zone, and food doesn't get in by itself. But I would say that the task that is most important to us is what we do from the medical side. So soldiers are great and they have amazing gear. Thank you to my parents that hosted my event last year. And that works until it doesn't. And in that moment is where we step up. And that moment is where we come in, and in a matter of minutes, as I'll explain a little bit later on here, we're able to get them out and get them to the helicopters, to wherever they need to, so that they can get onto the trauma tables and their lives saved. So I'm going to do a little bit of like a chronology of sort of what it looked like, but first I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you. I know everybody says always, no, it's me, it's the soldiers that need it, it's us. Thank you guys. I always like to use the analogy of a spear. And as sharp as we are at the tip, we only have the power that we have because of the support base behind that. And that's each and every one of you in the ways that you're doing it, and even just showing up tonight, really, it's very moving. I expected maybe like 30 people, and I was telling my mother, I'm like, I don't want to speak to my family about this. And like, it seems like they're the only ones coming, but like, wow, this is really amazing. So thank you guys. I'd like to give a special thank you as well to the Wolfsons. Hosting the event, and I don't know if Daniel's mother here. Is she? So I don't know if you knew when you gave your donation, but your donation actually helped me get me one of the best pieces of equipment that I needed, and actually helped me save lives there. So thank you very much. Now I'm looking around this room, and I could realistically name at least 85-90% of you for helping me. But for the sake of brevity, I think we're just going to have to do a very general thank you right now. So thank you to the donors. Thank you to the daveners. I know my mom had a massive WhatsApp group for everybody there. The drivers, the researchers, the suppliers, the flyers, and even the smugglers. Very, 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 very important. I think in total we managed to bring in, just for my guys, something like a ton. Or over a ton actually of supplies. We had over 50 bags at 50 pounds apiece coming in. It was a lot of stuff. My guys love the bags. Israelis have never seen bags that big. So every single piece of the donations got used. Thank you guys, really. All right, I'm doing good. So I woke up on the 7th at 6:30. It was Simchat Torah for us. And I said, I'm gonna be a good Jew. I got this. I'm not gonna, use my phone. Go outside, I'm sitting in the sukkah doing a meditation at 6:30 in the morning. Finish, open up a book, I'm just starting to do a little bit of reading. And the neighbor comes running home from shul, Tal is flying behind him. He looks at me, he's like, are you in Miluim, are you in reserve duty? I said, yeah. He's like, go turn on your phone right now, they already called half a shul. So I went, turned on my phone, and I had already been part of many of the Telegram groups that some of you may or may have gotten to know over time. Within 5 minutes of going through them, both from the Jewish side as well as from the Arab side I was in, so I really got the full picture very quickly. Within about 5 to 10 minutes, I understood the severity of the situation. Like, I knew that we were looking at 1,000 plus dead. And I was on the way out the door, and got stopped by, at the time, my future father-in-law, because I was actually supposed to be getting married the week after that. And I sort of told him what happened, and I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to wait till they call me. And I spoke with my commander, and within about 2 hours, I had gotten the call. And so, looked at my fiance, now wife. I said, baby, I love you, and I have to go. And I just walked right out the door. It was a very weird day driving down. We were up, and her parents were in the Cryo near Haifa. The only people that were on the road that morning were men between the ages of 20 and call it 40 or 50. And unlike every other day in Israeli society, whoever had a faster car that day let the other person go faster than them. And so I think I made it from Haifa to Jerusalem in 55 minutes. I was averaging probably 130 the whole way, and I was moving over for the Teslas that were flying past me. For the guys in their whatever cars, that were all tricked out with, their loud, muffler stripped out and whatnot. There was no ego on the road that day. I got to Jerusalem. I had my go bag. I had all my gear already there. Realized that I didn't have my key. Now I'm on the 5th floor apartment in Jerusalem, and I can't exactly get that without it. End up knocking on the neighbor's door, like one apartment under me. This old couple walks out. I'm like, you need to open. I tell him in Hebrew, you need to open the roof for me. I have to get into my apartment. It's like, I don't even know what that means, but I was like, just give me the key to the roof. I ended up jumping down one floor. I knew that my porch door was open because who's climbing up 5 flights, Grabbed the bag, but the problem is that, like, in classic Israeli fashion, the door locks on both sides. So you need the key, but you can't just open the door from the inside out. So now we're stuck with this bag. I have a bag that weighs 60 pounds. I'm ready to go, but I'm stuck. Like, how do I get out? And I remembered I rock climbed. So I took it, I tied up the bag, tied it to the radiator, threw the bag out the window, threw the rope out the window. I'm like, I don't know when I'm coming back. Climbed back over the railing, took my bag and went down to base. For me, getting to base was a little surreal. It was that moment where I began to realize the scale of what was going on. The drive, they told us not to park near the base. They told us not to come to the base. And afterwards, I realized we took buses from probably 2-3 miles away. And the last 1.5 miles to get to base, there were 8 lines of cars. There was the emergency lane, there was the left lane, there was 2 on the divider, and then there was another 2 on the other side. For 1.5 miles in every direction. At least 15,000 people went through my base that day. We got there. As soon as we got there, we grabbed bags that they had stored for most. I was one of the few people that actually had his own gear, but most other people, they aren't soldiers in their day-to-day, and they don't have gear, and then when they come, they just grab a bag from the army and they go out. We grabbed stuff. We didn't even have time to sight in our guns. We didn't have time to go to the shooting range. We didn't know if what we were aiming at we were going to hit. It didn't matter. We just grabbed it and went. That evening we drove down. They told us we're going to go to the area near Saad and Kfar Aza. And we started going down the highway. And we turned near Sderot. And things just turned apocalyptic. Like, it was just like the things I had been seeing on my phone, and I sort of have been bracing myself for it. Just in one moment it switched. And what I realized very quickly was the scale of it. Like, it's very easy to sort of see it on a phone. You watch movies, you get desensitized by the violence. It's another thing to actually see the full-size car burned out. But not just one car. and not just for 5 feet or 10 feet. Like, it's Israel. Like, we've you maybe spend enough years driving on the road, you see a car accident. It's localized. It's not, stretching out and progressing over time. And this was a 25-minute drive through hell. This was a drive through bus stops riddled with a pile of bodies. I'm talking for 2-3 days, we didn't even have time to clean that up. And this was just that first day going down. Cars burned down in every form, on every side, everywhere. People in various states of trying to flee. Some making it out of their car, some not. Some trying to reach for the back seat for the kid, couldn't make it. Terrorists in every direction. Cars. It was a mess. They always talk about the one thing that you realize when it's real is the smell, and there was the smell of everything. Of the burning oil and the rubber and the smoke and all of the different things coming in at once. And that was just their drive down. There was other than that, there was no life to be seen. That what was so terrifying about it. There was literally nothing there, and we were just looking at each other, one another, and we're like, what are we walking into right now? Where are we? What is this? This was larger than really anything. And we were combat soldiers. Like, we had seen combat to some extent. Some more than others, but we had all seen it. That was the first 12 hours. Over the next 36 hours, or I should say starting from the beginning, but over the next 24 hours from that point, was chaos. Nobody knew where anybody was. There were tanks driving across streets. There were gunshots going off in every direction. We didn't know, is it our guys? Is it their guys? Are we shooting at ourselves? We didn't know where they came in from. Did they have tunnels? Because they would pop up and then they wouldn't, and then it was man. And I remember that the first mission that we got was, we came down there, we sort of pushed our way to the front, we said, we have vehicles here, we're ready to go. Tell us where, tell us what. There was no ego that day. Just tell us what needs to be done. And the first job, the first task that we had was to start moving bodies. And I think that first day we transported at least 100, 120 bodies. And they take up space. They were it was a pyre. We had one spot where there was probably 25, 30 soldiers just stacked on the side. And we stripped them down. We took their guns, we took ammo off them, it was real life. Where you think, oh, this is just like a movie. This is a video game. This was real life. And we loaded them onto these trucks and we start heading back up to the center of the country to drop them off at this centralized collection point on one of the bases. And everybody sees us and they see these soldiers and they see us driving up. And those first few days it was amazing to see the nationality, the nationalism, the people, the patriotism of the Jewish nation coming together. And people are celebrating and cheering us. And every time that we stop, people are blasting and saying Am Yisrael Chai. And we were just sitting there looking at one another. If you knew what was under the cover of these trucks, you would not be saying that right now. And I remember getting to this base. We finally get in there. We pull in there. And they say, okay, you make a right, a left, you come here. There's signs how to get to where they have literally just, freezers the size of this room and a street of them. Or refrigerators, I guess. And we get there, we start, first of all, we see a line of trucks. There were others like us, and 10, 15 trucks lined up before, we even started getting close to it. And we walk out, we're walking around, and we just hear this banging noise. What's all this banging, banging? I turn a corner, and I see probably 20 guys sitting there with half the pine trees in Israel, just banging out boxes, banging out boxes, banging out boxes. There was, to the height of the ceiling, coffins, and they're just building more and more and more. And I was just what is going on here? I remember the one scene that stuck for me the most at that collection point was this one guy pulled in with his Toyota, his Land Cruiser, with a little cart on the back, and on it he had 3 or 4 bodies. 2 of them were literally fused together, all of them completely burned out, and they were wrapped in the campaign posters that the various politicians would use. And I remember just looking at it, because up until the 7th, we were at each other's necks. I remember it was so surreal. I was looking at it, I'm like, this is what we've come through. This is the smack in the face. This is God telling me, what are you doing? And that was just one example of the extreme nature of what I was seeing that day. But with that extreme loss came the extreme support. Because every time that we stopped at a red light, cigarettes, t-shirts, socks, shawarma, falafel, Hasidim, Temanim, this, that. There was no differences amongst the Jews that day. Everybody came out together. It was, we were like, save it, come back like in 3 days. We can't eat this now. Like, cases of XL, cases of Monster. Like, there was, like, we had room for six other guys in our Jeep, and there was no room. It was just stuffed with food, stuffed with anything that one guy, he was once in the army and he didn't have a little string, and now I had 3 miles worth of string. Like, we didn't know what to do with it, but it was amazing to have sort of both of those. And at the same time that all this was going on, we're sort of running back and forth, and like, mind you, we're going on probably 48 hours no sleep at this point. I realized, like, I need to get things for my own guys. Like, it's very nice that people are just throwing things at me, but like, what am I doing here? Like, my guys need specific things. Not all of us have ceramic plating. Not all of us have vests that actually work. Some of us don't have bags. As I started going through this list, the list started getting longer and longer and longer. And so I remember in the first, like, probably 12 hours of it, I was doing it by myself. I sent the link, my mom would go, she'd find it, she'd order it. Within like 12 hours, I realized, like, this is too much. And so somehow through all this at the same time, I just started delegating. And I don't know, my parents, I don't know what they put together on their end, but it was amazing. We put together, I think, a team of probably close to 40 people in those first days. First was a small WhatsApp group, and people just started coming in. Like, one guy's like, yeah, I know about, different scopes and whatever. I was like, come, I need you for these things. And people just started coming and coming. We probably had close to 40 people between. I would just send the link, and depending on whether Prime would send it within 12 hours or 24 hours, I'd have it literally within 36 to 48 hours. Like, in the war zone in Israel. That's how quick it was. Like, as soon as it got to the door, it was at JFK 20 minutes later, and from there it was ready by us. So it was amazing. It was like, I'm really in shock, because we always sit there and we're like, are we going to show up? Am I going to show up when, push comes to shove? And man, you guys really showed up for us. So if any of you guys follow me on social media, not that I'm saying that you should, but if you do, you may have already read about what I'm going to talk about next. On our third day, they got to a point where they said, okay, we've managed to push out a fair number of these terrorists. We need to actually understand who's been killed, who's been kidnapped. We need to know what's going on here. We need to actually have numbers, and we need to put names to these numbers. Someone needs to do it. And so while everybody from my brigade was sitting there and was actually fighting and taking back Kfar Aza, house by house, bush by bush, it's literally, these guys, we were pulling them out of bushes. Like, we're shooting them in bushes. Like, it was like, anywhere that you thought they could hide, they were hidden there. And our mission was to find them. So we went around with one of the ladies that had lived there, former Army commander. And she, from the beginning, from that first day, was already coordinating with the Army, with the people that were in their homes trapped, and with the units that were coming in over those first few days to say, okay, there's 2 people in this house, go there right now because there's terrorists outside. Go here, go there. We went around with her. And so while most of my brigade was stuck looking at 1, 2, 3, 10 houses in the very narrow strip, so they wouldn't have crossfire between them and other people, we went around the whole Kfar Aza in a span of probably 3 or 4 hours. And I mean, everything that you've heard of, I saw. Everything that was whispered behind closed doors, or that you by accident saw a picture, or all the blurred out pictures, I saw people beheaded. When I say that I saw, what I mean is, I'll give you an example. The first house that we walked into, mind you, this is day 3. It's the summer heat in Israel. October is still summer for us. Bodies are decomposing. You smell them before you see them. and get to the first house, and we know that there's someone inside, and the house is sort of burnt out. We kick the door down, and we search through the whole house. Find the guy there, burnt on the floor. And he was burned so bad that we actually couldn't recognize him, even though we kind of knew who it was supposed to be. So we did what all Israelis do. We went to the fridge and found the magnets from the wedding and found a picture of him and saw that on his arm he had a tattoo of Magen David, and went to his body, flipped him over, and just barely made it out. Okay, good, he's dead. Next house. And so it was just the shock of that first, like, oh my God, this is everywhere here. This isn't just like, it wasn't just the ones that were out on the road. It wasn't just the ones that like got caught between, at the wrong time, the wrong place. No matter where we looked that day, there was death. I walked into a house, into no smells, no nothing, clear the whole house, get to the bomb shelter, open the bomb shelter, just hit with a wave of just the most putrid, foul smell I've ever smelled. And I look in there, I see 4 people in there. I see a dad with 3 kids. And, we go out, we tell this lady, like, this is what we saw. She's like, no, we're missing someone, we have to go back. And what had happened is that they came in, and there was no lock on their bomb shelter. They just opened the door, because it's supposed to protect from rockets and not from people kicking in your front door. And there was a dad, 3 boys, and the mom. The mom, they stuffed into the corner, and all of them jumped on top of her. To no avail, didn't help. All of them were riddled. And it was just from one to, I saw 2 brothers, one beheaded, one burned. I saw it just, and this wasn't like just seeing it, like we had to identify them. Like I walked out of there that day, it took me 2 weeks to get the smell of rotten flesh off of me. Off my gear, probably about a month. Like that was the reality that we were living. That was what those first few days looked like. It was the most extreme, and not just in on the micro scale of detail by detail, but really on the macro scale, because at the same time that it was happening to me, it was happening all over the country. It was happening all over the strip. All over southern Israel, there were kibbutzim that looked exactly like mine, some a little bit worse, most not as bad, but it happened everywhere. We finished that week, we managed to sort of, gain a small semblance of control. And they're like, okay, we need you up north now. And so we ended up flying up north, even though we could have taken the 6-hour drive. They said, no, you need to be there now. Ended up flying up north. And what we thought was going to be the equivalent of 2.0 of this happening, thank God didn't. But we sat there for a month and a half training every day, watching mortars and rockets falling all around, waiting for that drone to come in. And training, and just saying like, it's going to be what it's going to be, and we're going to react however we need to. Because we cannot stop this. And thank God that it didn't come. And so that was probably by early December, that's where we were at. And then they said, okay guys, pack up, we're going down south. We're going into Gaza. Do a couple more days of training, get us up onto the border. This is our direction, and let's go. And so from Kfar Aza, we went into Yunis. That feeling of crossing that border that first day was surreal. It was a moment of empowerment that I'm finally here to do my job. It was a feeling almost of shame that I had failed to do my job up until that point, and that I was only reacting, not being proactive. It was the thrill and the rush of adrenaline that comes whenever you sort of, put yourself in a dangerous situation. And it was the nervousness of not only am I concerned for everybody else, my job only starts when they have their worst day. And so for me, it was gas and brakes at the same time. It was like, I want to do my job and I want to do it really well, and at the same time, I really hope that I never have to do my job. And those first 2 weeks it was like stepping into another planet. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that their homes were so different, or that the geography changed, But the very fundamental meaning of what we do in our lives, that we're always looking to build, we're always looking to make better, everything was reversed. Everything was reversed with regards to that. And it wasn't just driven out of anger. It was driven out of although part of it was driven from emotions, was very cold and logical reasoning. It was like, if someone could be hiding here, I have to take down this orchard of olives. If someone could be hiding here, I have to take down this house. I have to take down this row of houses. I have to take down the street. I have to rip up. And what it turned into very quickly is that we're just sitting there, and no matter what we see, we're just plowing through it. And I think the hardest part about combat is that unknown. It's not, when I can see it in front of me, I'm fine with it. I can handle it. It's, where's that next shot gonna come from? Where's that next mortar gonna land? Where's that next rocket coming from? Those first week and a half was a lot of mass casualty incidences as we learned their style of fighting, as we walked in, over a bomb, over an IED, and having to respond to that, and having to figure out how to work with one another. Because in as much as we train to work within the smaller units, when you start coordinating on a much larger scale like anything, it gets exceedingly more difficult. And so those first 2 weeks was a lot of, I don't want to say trial and error, but it was a lot of getting used to speaking the same language and communicating. It was really learning how to communicate all over again. I remember my first major incident as a medic. We had just moved into a new house. We would sort of pick the nicest ones in the area and set up shop. And they have some nice houses, let me tell you. Some really, really nice houses. They really even rival some of the ones back here. Not joking. We had one of our companies go in to take over a strip. And they started going down. And just one more day, we've been doing this already for a couple weeks. We got this, we're in our groove. Everybody knows how to work with one another. And all of a sudden we hear over the radio, get ready, there's been some sort of incident. And then about 30 seconds later, they say, okay, we have someone that's wounded, we need you guys to come in right now. And so this was, mind you, maybe 1,000 feet away from us, 5 buildings over. And so we get on our Jeeps, we fly down there, we find this company of people effectively shell-shocked from what just happened, and we sort of run in there, we grab them, get a small understanding of situational awareness, what's going on around us, and they're like, yeah, we have a guy who was shot in the head, we need to get him out of here. I'm like, fine, we go, we grab him, start bringing him back to the van, and the guys were like, nah, leave him, he's not gonna make it, he's not even alive. And so being the medic, I was like, okay, that's forgot to decide not, I ran up, I put a finger on his pulse, and I just felt that thing thumping away. And I looked at him, and there wasn't much to look at that point, but I said, his heart's beating, let's go. And we took him, and we threw him on the back of this Jeep, bullets literally pinging off all around us. Smoke grenades and everything built in. Smoke grenades don't stop the bullets. And we drive maybe 100 meters down the street, and we get to the end of this block, and I look at the doctor, he looks at me, and he's like, he's not breathing, we have to trach him now. We have to give him we have to cut into his throat and give him surgery right here, or he's not even gonna make it to the helipad. And so on a moving Jeep, in the middle, maybe the doctor will appreciate this more, or the doctors if there are more of them here, we performed battlefield surgery. Dropped it in, got him breathing, and he was breathing. He made it to the helipad, and from the helipad to the hospital in 25 minutes. He unfortunately passed away, but there are several different kinds of patients that we learn to deal with. There are the patients that no matter what you do for them, they're gonna die. There are the patients that no matter what you do or don't do to them, they're gonna live. And then there's that small window in between for the ones that we actually do have the ability to save. He unfortunately was not one of those, and his injury was too drastic. The next incident was several days after that, where our situational awareness was a lot higher now that we realized that this is very real, and it's not just happening in other places, it's happening amongst us as well. And our house was on the corner, and maybe 200 feet away across the street was the house of Armagad, of the battalion commander. And they were all in the house, and there was one of these officers with this other guy upstairs, and they had sandbags all around them. They're on the 3rd floor. They're wearing their vests, with their ceramic plating, helmets, everything. They had all the protection that they could have ever needed. And also we hear a bam, and a mortar goes off, maybe 200 feet away, and a piece of shrapnel went flying up over the sandbags and landed right in between his shoulder blades. Bring him downstairs, pull it all off, in through the shoulder blades, out through his shoulder, do what we can for him there. Gotta get him get medevac down. Put him on, get him to the border, and at the same time that this happened, there was another mass casualty incident somewhere else. So while we were waiting for the helicopter that was normally on a 2-minute call, standby, this ended up taking an extra 15 minutes. And so we're looking at him and we're getting him all prepped, and he was sort of semi-conscious, and he was like, I can't, it's hard for me to breathe. And I look at my doctor looks at me and is like, all right, we have to give this guy a chest tube. And so once again, battlefield surgery, right there on the helipad. And we saved his life. In fact, when we got out of Gaza, we went for this day of processing, I guess you could call it. And all of a sudden I look and they're like, yeah, you have to come meet this guy. And I just see him standing there. And I'm like, how are you even like on your own 2 feet at this point? What's going on here? And he's like, yeah, my shoulder's gonna be messed up for 6 months, but I got full feeling in my fingers and there's no permanent damage. And I was just like, whoa, like this guy literally was like another 2 minutes away from dying. And once again, to sort of see that extreme on how being in the right place at the right time can really make a difference was just, it was amazing for me. Over the next month and a half, daily life started becoming daily life. It was dangerous, still dangerous, but given enough time, no matter what it is, no matter how extreme, everything becomes normal. The human body just adapts. And so we adapted to waking up every couple hours to do night shifts and stand there for multiple hours just staring into nothingness. We had old transistor radios, I had to like find the channels. The young ones don't understand, that's fine. But that was it. And we would get up in the morning and we would eat breakfast and we'd go take over a couple houses and then we'd come back, and it was just day after day after day. And yet, even at the same time, even when the enemy wasn't present there, because we had managed to push them back already and they had already managed to retreat much further, combat zones aren't safe places. There is a lot of rubble around. And this is definitely one of those times that I could really say that the group chat that my mom made really paid off. Because I know that while maybe people said it for me, but they probably had other people in mind as well for the rest of my unit, or at least I like to think that they did. We were driving one day, and we were going over like a bumpy area with a lot of rebar and concrete and smashed up houses, and all of a sudden the lead driver slams on the brakes and just stops, and they're screaming, medic, medic. And I'm like, oh no, what just happened? Like, nothing happened, what just happened? Who did we hit? And we stopped, and I got to the driver of the lead car, and he's looking at me, and his face is white, and the commander's looking at him, and his face is white. I'm like, okay. A piece of this long metal pole, no idea how, when he rolled over with the tire, the piece came up through the floorboard, through his shoe, through the sole, through his sock, gave him the tiniest of scratches, and then another 5.5 feet of metal right over the top of his head. Like, missed being impaled by like that much. Just on a normal drive, on a normal routine day. And I was just like, wow, this is also out of my hands. And what I kept on realizing time and time again is that the only thing that I could do was to let go. The only thing that I could do to get through this was to just say, it's bigger than me. And when it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and I can't do anything more than that. Thank God we weren't in an area that was as hot as some other people. And while there was, I have way too much footage of it, but I could show you hours of just blowing up stuff and whatnot. But for the most part, things were relatively calm. And I say relatively, again, take that with a big grain of salt, because like, we were still fighting every day. Getting out was weird. Getting out required a lot of decompression. And I was like, okay, get out. Mind you that I was supposed to get married on October 18th, and I got pushed off. I was like, okay, I'll get married, think about it. I was like, okay, I have a month. Set a date, I'm gonna take a month, make this work. And every day I'd wake up in the morning, or every whatever time, exactly 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was that they had us on that schedule, and I'd just be ready to go, ready to go, ready to go. What do we do? Where am I going? What's next? What's next? And it was that adjustment period really took a lot out of me. And it took a lot out of both of us. I found that for me, after being in an environment where there was so much damage being done, the thing that really helped me was to build. And it was stupid little things. I took a hammer and nails and just slammed together some pieces of wood and made a little, thing for my garden. But it helped. It was like I was capable of doing something that wasn't destructive. I was capable of actually making the world slightly more beautiful, even if I was the only one that found it beautiful. And then I got married, and from extreme I went to extreme. And yeah, that was, I'm biased. It was my wedding, it was our wedding. Definitely biased on that. But there was a party planner. I had people that were like totally not affiliated at all with this like wedding that were just coming up to me and they're like, they're like, I've never been at a wedding like this before. This is crazy. And it really was. I had friends that came out that found replacements 2 hours before they left Gaza and went back to Gaza the same night. I had probably five friends that did that. I had Ari show up out of nowhere all of a sudden with in uniform. It was. I knew that you were coming. We spoke about this. And it was an amazing event that was just filled with all the extremes of emotions, and it was really, really beautiful. And I think it's normal to struggle and find what you call in therapy the middle path, or really anybody, it's kind of self-explanatory. Because the middle path is only found by going to the extremes. We only know what the middle looks like by knowing what our extremes look like. And for me, I had the extremes of the most vile, despicable acts. And I had the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me in my life. And finding that is not as simple as just moving. It's I move and I overcompensate. I move and I overcompensate. And with time, I'm slowly slowing down to find that middle place. I'm gonna sort of zoom out for a moment here and explain why this means so much to me and where I come from. So, I have my own mental health journey. Had not the best of childhoods, although not due to my parents, I promise. They gave me an amazing one. Just today, me and Rena, I finally had to, do the embarrassing thing and take out the family albums. And she's like, oh my God, where were you going as a kid? You're in all these crazy, amazing places. And I'm just like, I know, but I'm so dorky. But really, it was an amazing, amazing childhood, except for a couple incidences that had nothing to do with the family. And as a result of that, I honestly wasn't even aware of it for a while and pushed it under the rug for a long time until the Army brought it out for me. The Army is the place where you forge a sword. And you forge a sword by taking pressure and heat and smashing, and you find out what you're made out of. And I found out what I was made out of. And I didn't like it, and I ran from it. And I ran from it for a while until I couldn't run anymore. And so when everybody in my unit got out and went to Thailand and started traveling the world and having a great time, I went to rehab. And I checked myself in and ripped my life apart for 6 months. And in hindsight, that was the greatest gift that I was ever given. It was the most beautiful thing that I ever did in my life. It was by far the hardest, but it was the most beautiful thing I ever did. And I will say, as someone that has done many years of, call it the traditional talk therapies, of art therapies, of breathing, of psychedelics, of ice baths, you name it, I've probably tried it. There is no one size that fits all. There are different things that are better at different times, that are more appropriate for certain situations, and everybody has their own way of doing it. And when I was just at the Nevut event this past week, where we sat around with a bunch of soldiers and we're speaking about this, I used an analogy of the hammer and the nail. And I said, guys, if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. If you only have one way of dealing with the things that you're feeling, and some of those things can be beneficial, like go to work. But if you only know how to deal with your problems by going to work, that's not a great thing. We need to be a Leatherman. We need to be that multi-tool, that no matter where I am in life, I will always have that resiliency to be able to change it. And sometimes I need the saw, and sometimes I need the file, and sometimes I need all the different tools that come with that. I think for me, and the video kind of stalled this out a little bit, I've known Ari for, he's gonna feel a little old when I say this now, just a drop under 10 years. Yeah, I know, it flies. He's always there for the hug. Ari is that guy that no matter when I needed to see him, no matter when I had nothing, and I literally had nothing at times. There was no food in the apartment, I didn't have a refrigerator. Like, I would just come home, and if I had time to buy a bag of ice and throw it in the icebox, like, yeah, the good old days. And I would come in, sometimes I'd make it into Jerusalem on a Friday afternoon with 30 minutes to Shabbat, and I go right to Ari, and I knew that I had a meal. And not that I just had a meal, I had a warm place to stay for however long I wanted, indefinitely. Gear, I mean, really, taught like endless support. And never with an expectation back. Just, as he would say, let me see that smile. Let me see that smile one more time. That was it. If I could sum up Ari and the work that he does today in a single sentence, it would be this. It's easy to wear the uniform. It's grueling to wear the everyday. And Ari is truly someone that really exemplifies and understands what that means. Because it is very easy to go there and be part of something that's larger than me. I get to run away in a certain part, and no matter how noble it is, I get to run away from who I am and be part of something larger. It is much harder when I come back and have to sit with myself and be with myself. That's way, way harder. And Ari truly understands that. Since its inception, Nevut has helped myself, and really a ton of veterans from all over, find their way to that middle path. Find that way, and as I said before, that could be the smallest thing from literally just a hug to helping them with therapy, to helping them get their lives on track with a job. It doesn't make sense to start talking about those things because when you say the word life, there's going to be something in there that Nevut's going to do to help a lone soldier. And in my experience, what I've seen as being sort of the recipient of, call it this quote-unquote aid or the help that you guys provide, there's a very, very big difference between the large organizations and the smaller organizations when it comes to this. And not that I'm bashing on large organizations, because they do their own amazing work that small ones wouldn't. But the larger that you make an organization, the more bureaucracy you have to deal with, and the less of your dollar actually makes it to that final destination. And if there's one thing that I know about Ari, and there's one thing that I know about Nevut, every single dollar that comes in absolutely goes to the soldiers. No matter what form they need it in, it absolutely gets to them. I think it's very important to acknowledge the fact, and I think this video kind of highlighted it, although we're going to work on it because, let me tell you, it was a lot more raw when these guys were really doing the talking there. And I knew a lot of these guys. And I'm not just talking about the ones where you're like, okay, yeah, you came to the Army because, we all know that you're running from something. But like the normal ones, the guys that are like, you seem to have your head screwed on straight. You're like, no matter what you've done, like you made something of yourself. And these are people that served and they did whatever they did and saw what they saw and came back and had lives and had jobs and were CEOs and were, working at real places, making real things of themselves. Normal guys cannot stay healthy in a war zone. We just can't. It's the antithesis of life. And so the longer that we stay there, no matter who we are, we start to corrode from the inside out. I think it's very, very important, and I'm gonna let Ari talk a little bit more, sorry to put you on the spot if you weren't going to, about the specifics that they do. But I just wanna say one final line that I think really encompasses everything that I've been trying to say here tonight. It's that It's painless to succumb to the chaos of war, yet it's strenuous to embrace the silence of home. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight.